Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's design webinar, continuing our theme of design and business software for the month of February. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Miguel Merida, President of MicroCAD Software, as he leads us into how to design a custom kitchen with Autokitchen software. Miguel, please take it away.
Thank you very much for attending today's webinar. My name is Miguel Merida. I'm a principal at MicroCAD Software. We are located in northern New Jersey. My company, MicroCAD, has been operating here since 2002. We are NKBA members, and we are regular exhibitors at KBIS. If any of you is planning to attend this year KBIS, we are planning to be there. In terms of Autokitchen, in case the product, the design software itself is new to you, I'd like to mention a couple of things. It's a standalone application, meaning it's not an add-in to AutoCAD or to any other program. It's ideal for kitchens, bathrooms, and other interior spaces. The thrusts of the catalogs are construction-based cabinetry. This means cabinets can be frame or frameless. If they are framed, they can be in set, full overlay, partial overlay. If they are frameless, that's the way they are. And this all the catalogs, all the cabinetry are preloaded. We don't have to go anywhere to download anything. The same thing applies to appliances, plumbing, materials, finishes, and so forth. A couple of things that are maybe unique of Autokitchen is one is that philosophy is that we think that one application should be sufficient to do all the things that you need when creating custom kitchens. So the plans, the elevations, the perspectives, the color renders, the panoramic views, the virtual reality. I see a lot of designers on my daily interactions, some of them doing custom kitchens, and typically they are using one or more applications, and sometimes two or three applications to do the design. I find that to be detrimental in terms of the amount of time that it takes. With Autokitchen, there is no need to do that. A second benefit, perhaps, is that Autokitchen is now one of the few, perhaps the only, design software package that is available not just as a subscription, but also available for purchase, something that is pretty much disappeared. Now, sometimes we are confused, sometimes we are compared to AutoCAD, and there are several reasons for that. For many years, Autokitchen was running based on an engine from Autodesk, an AutoCAD engine. Even our name, Autokitchen, is partially maybe based on AutoCAD. The reality is that even though we are still 100% compatible with AutoCAD, our files, the Autokitchen files, are DWG files, we are far removed from being a drafting tool. Here is a typical floor plan in AutoCAD. Is very sharp looking, and it looks really the way that these plans tend to look. However, the problem is that it takes a huge amount of time to design a kitchen with this tool because everything is done one line at a time. Here is a typical elevation. The idea here is to make notes, very, 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 very many of them, because there is really in the AutoCAD world no other way to look at this elevation. So that's why the reason for so many observations and dimensions. The process of creating these views, the views are independent. So each view, each elevation view is a drawing in itself. They are not connected. So when you have to make revisions to a kitchen, which in custom kitchens and kitchens in general, they happen all the time, the process turns very time consuming. Yet, despite the drawbacks, the lack of perspectives, the lack of color, the lack of reporting out of AutoCAD, on occasion, I still find designers using AutoCAD for doing custom kitchens. Here is an example of a typical slide or typical plan from Autokitchen. This one is not as overloaded with dimensions and notes, because the reality is that apart from looking at the island front and back and also laterally, You can shoot perspectives from any angle, and you can do that with black and white or color. And then the process of conveying how this island is going to look is very clear, not just to other colleagues or tradespeople, but also to the customer. In terms of today's webinar, the goal is to design a custom kitchen. I wanted it to be a hands-on webinar, so more than me just talking about Autokitchen, I wanted to show it to you for you to see how it works. I broke the presentation into three major segments: preparation of the design, designing the kitchen, and then the last segment is about how to share the results of what you design with customers and others. As I go through the three phases, I'll try to highlight some of the main differences between Autokitchen and other applications out there. Now, before we delve into the custom kitchen, what is it really? What makes a kitchen custom? Well, there are many opinions on that. Almost every person that you ask might give you a slightly different answer. I asked ChatGPT, and this is, I guess, the common wisdom. It's basically a kitchen that is designed around the preferences, needs, and style of a customer, not something that is done on a mass market type of thing. In reality, there are many different levels of customization. Sometimes people refer to that as custom dimensions. Sometimes it can be a custom hood, a custom finish, custom moldings. In many cases, what makes a kitchen custom tends to be cabinetry, and in particular detail. So from the software standpoint, we think it's important to use a tool that gives you flexibility to design whatever it is that you need to design, but also the ability to show detail and for those details to look realistic. This is a snapshot of the kitchen that we are going to be designing today. This kitchen is custom for several reasons. There is a lot of custom size dimensions in some of the cabinets. There's also, in some cases, the frame around the cabinets have been basically integrated into maybe two or three cabinets share the same frame. There is no wall cabinets. It's just basically tall cabinets, base cabinets, a large island with a custom countertop with two different finishes, a big panel on the back, two different finishes, the blue and the wood. Those are the things that I think overall make the kitchen to be custom. Now, in terms of the preparation phase, this is sort of the stage where you make an inventory of all the things that you need to include into your design, sort of like the ingredients if it were a meal. And the key categories, cabinetry. In our case, we're going to design a frame inset, a flush inset cabinet. The doors are going to be butted doors when they are together. There's no center style. The style dimensions are going to be standard, 1.5 inches. The same thing applies to rails. The door style is going to be a square edge recessed door, similar to a shaker door, but with a little bit of a detail when the panel of the door meets the frame. And in terms of the hardware, it's a little bit different. The drawer, which by the way is a slab, not a 5-piece, is going to have one type of knob, and then the doors themselves will have a different one. These are things that when you're going to embark on a design. Either you have a meeting with the customer, or maybe the customer tells you what they need. Whichever the case might be, this is information that you need to take into account to go and design the kitchen. In terms of the appliances, there are several big categories here. So we have a large gas range. This one happens to be by La Cornue. The hood is a metal custom hood made by Hope Company out of Indiana. The dishwasher is a Viking professional dishwasher. The refrigeration is by Sub-Zero. The ovens, one of them is by Cafe Appliances, the other one is by Wolf. We basically went back and forth between this one and the Wolf model, but whichever the case, these are appliances that are already preloaded in AutoKitchen. When you install the program, they are there for you to be used. In the event that you need an appliance or a finish that is not readily available in AutoKitchen, you can certainly import that from certain sites, particularly the 3D warehouse. In terms of finishes, I enlisted the help of my friend Susan Sterra, who is a very talented designer, and we went back and forth about which colors to use. Decided to use wallpaper for the kitchen walls, not because in the end might be wallpaper, but rather because the wallpaper here looks a little bit like a high quality hand paint or a vinyl. The floor is going to be light wood. The ceiling is just a texture ceiling, and then there is a tile backsplash above the range, between the range and the hood. As for the cabinetry finishes, the cabinets are wood. Some of them are going to be finished just the regular walnut, a combination of regular walnut and light, I should say. And then some cabinets, like the cabinets on the island and also the cabinets immediately adjacent to the range, are going to be painted, and the color is going to be Soot by Benjamin Moore. The countertops are going to be by Neolith. The model is called Alexandra. It's also preloaded into the software. And the back panel on the island is going to be a flexible tambour panel. It's time now to show you how the interface looks like. I'm going to go to AutoKitchen. This is the AutoKitchen interface. For those of you who might be new to it, the top section where all the buttons are is called the horizontal toolbar, also sometimes referred to as the ribbon, and the buttons are nested. So as you can tell, it says architecture, furnishings, countertop. So every time I click in any of the major categories, you can see how the buttons below change, and that's by design so that the task of finding the buttons that you need is not overwhelming. On the lower right corner, you have the drafting settings. This is something that was pioneered by Autodesk, I think, and now is available in many design programs, the OSNAPs, the Ortho, the Polar, and so forth. On the lower left corner, where it says model and paper, this is also a typical thing that happens in AutoCAD programs. So the model is the section of the program where you design, and then once the design is finished and you need to print it, you go to the paper space. Typical things that you'll do when you start a design. If you are new to AutoKitchen, you may want to start by going into projects and then going into user preferences. What happens with custom kitchens is that sometimes 1/8 of an inch is enough, but typically it's not. So you want to use maybe 1/16 of an inch. You can adjust that here. There is this number 4, which says dimensions, decimals for distances. There are other preferences that might be helpful. For instance, entering the company information. Again, if you are new to AutoKitchen, this is a good thing to do because the information then travels to the title block. You also may want to select a title block and a page size that is going to be fitting what you're trying to do. In general, for custom kitchens, we recommend to use 11 by 17 or higher. 11 by 17 is a very popular size for many reasons. It's readily available. It's also twice the size of a letter page. And typically, if you're printing at half an inch scale, I mean, unless the kitchen is huge, typically it will fit nicely in a tabloid page. So those are the user preferences. Another task that you want to perform early on before you design is going into the manufacturer button and select the catalog you're going to use. In AutoKitchen, you get 3 catalogs of cabinetry. These are the cabinets that I mentioned at the outset that are parametric. Parametric meaning that when you make an adjustment to a cabinet, it doesn't distort itself, which is important if you want your plans to look proportional, So the universal catalogs are the ones that are already compiled. You can make individual changes or modifications to individual cabinets. If you need to make global changes to the cabinetry, there is a companion utility that comes with AutoKitchen. It's called the AutoKitchen Catalog Customizer. And what it does is it allows you to make global changes so that when you deploy that catalog, in this case will be the custom catalog, you already have made some changes that are important to you and really important in the sense that it will save you time. Typical things that you may want to consider are changing things like the toe kick height, changing, for instance, the depth of upper cabinets, changing maybe some descriptions of cabinets, changing some codes and things of that nature. In our case, we're going to use the universal in set, which we deem to be sufficient for what we need to do here today. The next step after selecting the catalog is selecting the door style and the hardware that you want to use in your design. We're going to click on door. And of course, you have a sizable portfolio of doors, cabinet doors available to you. You can select them based on their description. You can also select them based on their graphical image. In our case, we are going to use this square edge door, which will be applicable to all the different doors except for the drawer. The drawer we're going to use as slab drawer. And as such, it says here slab horizontal grain. The hardware is going to be a knob, type of like a classic type knob, but it's going to be different. So the one for the drawer is this model here. When we do look at the knobs for regular doors is slightly different. Let me go back to the PowerPoint just to make sure that I'm not forgetting any particular point here. Yeah, of course, if you need materials, you can add your materials to the AutoKitchen via the catalog editor. This is a door selection, and we can start designing the kitchen once we've made the selection of door styles and catalogs. So back to AutoKitchen, and now that we made the selection, we click on the green check mark and we are ready to start. Now, in AutoKitchen, the process of designing the room is actually fairly straightforward. I look sometimes at how people go about designing the room, and there are two major categories of programs that I find sometimes to be perhaps more bureaucratic than they need to be. Some architectural programs, they require you to enter a lot of information about the dwelling. Sometimes the dimensions are outside dimensions. Of course, that doesn't really work that well for kitchen design. The other category of programs that I sometimes come across are modeling programs, the ones that you use to create like a little gadget. And sometimes people use that for kitchen design. And just the process of creating a room is so cumbersome because you don't really place walls. What you do rather is you take a cube that then becomes a box, that then you do an extrusion, you make the push-pull, and by the time you have your room designed, because everything is like that, the ceiling and the floor and the door and the window, 5, 6, 7 minutes easily go by and you're still cleaning your room. In AutoKitchen, none of that happens. So you can do a very easy design or a very complicated one for that matter by simply going into room. You enter the height of the room. In our case, it's going to be 108. This is basically where you select the materials that we covered before. So this is the wallpaper. For the walls, the flooring is the light wood that we mentioned before. The ceiling is just a textured ceiling. And then now that we have proper height, you can click on manual, and then we start the process here. This kitchen happens to be orientated so that the bottom is at, the main wall is at the bottom, but that's fine. This is, let's see, 220 is the first dimension, 276 is the next one. Then we go up 153. I'm typing the inches and then pressing enter after each number. And then this is 4625. I press enter, I click on the green check mark, and that's really the room where our kitchen is going to be. You can look at it from the top. You can also look at it from the orbiting tool. If you want to see it in black and white, this is the way it looks. If you want to see it with some basic coloring, That's the way it looks. My flooring is off by default. If you want to see it, you can just turn it on. This is the flooring. And then the next step is really to place a few windows. So in this kitchen, we have 2 windows on wall number 2, and then we have a window on wall number 3 and a window on wall number 1. The windows are readily available. There is nothing to download. There is the process of selection is very graphical, so you don't have to memorize the name of the window or who makes the window or the window model number. None of that in the end matters that much. What matters is that the window is correct visually and that the dimensions are accurate. So we click on window, we click on wall number 2. We're going to use this window. There are, of course, many other windows that you can select depending on what you really need. In this particular case, our window is 48 by 63, and it's going to be placed at 36 inches off the floor. Click on the green check mark. We're going to place this window recessed into the wall, and it's actually set at 33 inches. So I just typed 33. Let me do the process again. So you click on window, you select the wall where the window will go. You modify the dimensions as needed. So this one is 48 by 63. Because I want it to be recessed, I make sure the magenta star is on the back. I type the distance that separates the window from the corner, and those are my 2 windows. Now, the remaining other windows on left and right are slightly different. It's not the same model. So we'll scroll up and then select the model of window that we need. I'm going to enter the width, which is 48. The height and elevation remains the same. This one is also going to be recessed. So I type number 20, in this case it's 20 and a half, once my magenta star is on the inside. And then I'll do this one last time to place the last window. And in this case, the window is going to be separated 24 inches from the corner. So we have the windows right now. You can see how they are recessed into the wall. The color of the windows is, I'm using the default color for now. If we need to change them, which I think we do, you can do that at any point, now or later. Maybe we just do it now. Click on all windows and then select the color that you want for the window frame and such. In this case, it's a black paint, so we'll just select that, and that changes the color of all of the windows. Okay, I'm going to now go back to floor plan view, and the next phase is really to start placing cabinets. I'm going to place a couple of cabinets and show you how that looks and how you can populate the rest of the space. So we go to furnishings, click on cabinetry, and in Autokitchen, as you might see, there is no placement zone, there is no particular protocol or sequence that you need to follow. Basically, can start in a corner, you can start in the middle of the room, you can center cabinets on a wall, under a window, etc. In this case, we're going to place a Lazy Susan cabinet on one side of the kitchen on the left corner, and then a blind corner cabinet on the right. The process is simple enough. You click on corner cabinet. This cabinet is 36 by 36. Click on the manual insertion, slide the cabinet to the corner, and then click. When you place the cabinet, you can see how the way it looks, the shape of the cabinet is familiar enough to all of us. On top of that, you can see these 2 arrows, blue and red. So the arrows are there for 2 reasons. They'll tell you the distance or space available in that direction. So right now, pointing up is the blue arrow, says we have 117 inches between the cabinet and the wall across from it. And then on the red arrow says 240. That means that between the Lazy Susan and the wall on the right, we have 240 inches. Okay, you can also use the arrows on the placement window to put cabinets quickly. We'll do that in a moment. Now, let's go to blind corner cabinet. Let's select a left blind corner cabinet. Let's make it 42. One of the things that we've done in our kitchen about this cabinet is for some reason, this cabinet sometimes is a little bit of a headache, and designers sometimes move it away, sometimes, they do different things to it. So here you have the ability to specify not only the separation between the blind corner cabinet and the next cabinet that goes on one side. You can also specify the separation of this cabinet from the wall if you decide to separate that. In my case, we have 1.5. I find that typically pays to increase the door opening of this cabinet by the amount of inches that you separate the cabinet off the wall. So in this case, we'll use 16.5. Click on the check mark. I'll click on the manual insertion. This is my blind corner cabinet. As you can tell, the cabinet is not really touching the wall. This blue line, by the way, this is the countertop, the thin blue line. The two blue lines that are together is really the baseboard. Okay, and then of course the cabinet is browned, the door is orangey, and the knob is kind of like a light green. Now, when you place the next cabinet, imagine there is a cabinet here. So what you can do is select the cabinet. This cabinet, in our case, is going to be a 27-inch wide cabinet that has two doors and one drawer. And we need to, because the cabinet is going to be separated 1.5 inches, instead of putting a filler, I think it's nicer to put an extended style. So what we do is we extend the right style of that cabinet 1.5, so that when you place this cabinet next to the blind corner, which we do by pressing the red arrow, the cabinet is going to be touching the blind corner, and what it touches is really extended style. Now, the countertops in Autokitchen, they come included with the cabinet. Now, of course, if you're used to design without countertops, because the countertops are layered, you can turn the layer off, which takes 5 seconds, and then you don't have to do that. In reality, in most cases, the countertops come in by default with the cabinets. I think they'll save you time. Now, let's fix this situation where the counter is not really touching, because they should be touching, as you probably imagine. So then let's go to extend. Click on the counter, click on the cell of the counter that needs to be extended, click on the cabinet that needs the extension, and then this creates a temporary collision of countertops, which we eliminate quickly by selecting join slabs. And then in that case, once you do that, the countertop and the cabinets look fine. This is the way that our kitchen looks like. Of course, the colors are not the colors that we really need. So this is a good time to now select the colors. So what you do is you go to Photo, you click on Cabinet Materials, and then you select the, under Favorites, I previously have selected a few colors that I want to use in this design, which is something that gives you speed because you don't have to navigate the many finishes available in the different catalogs. So here we have this walnut. We click on one-click selection, click on the green check mark, and then if you want to combine the dark walnut with the lighter walnut, you can do that by dragging the light walnut to some of the I didn't click on the check mark. Let me just do that again. So we do select here, maybe, yeah, something like this. So you can see, if you come close to, you can see how there are two shades of walnut. The frame seems to be darker, the doors and the drawers seem to be lighter, and that's by design, so that the wood, later on today, when we do a render of this kitchen, the wood looks more realistic. Okay, the process of continuing to populate this kitchen here for base cabinets anyways, just selecting cabinets and click the red or the blue arrow, you end up with a design that, I'm not going to save this, I'm going to show you how it looks once you place the remaining base cabinets. This is in the interest of time. So now you can look at the way things look. You have now not only the two corner cabinets and the one that we placed after, but also the other ones that are supposed to go here. Now, we need to place a range and also a hood. We can do that under Appliances. You click on Appliances. I'm going to select one of the cabinets next to where the appliance is supposed to go. And then for selection of the appliance, which is already preloaded, as I mentioned before, we're going to select a lacquer new model. This one is a large range gas. And then because it points red, I'm going to click on the red button on my placement window, and that will place the range next to the cabinet. The next thing we need to do is place the custom metal hood. This one is by Haub. The particular model that we need is an angular model. So I just scroll. The interface is fairly graphical, as you can tell, easy to select what you need. If you need to modify dimensions, which we do, you can click on the ruler, and then here we'll modify the elevation, the height of the hood, and also the width. And these are numbers that make sense based on the size of the range below. We're going to center the hood above the range by using one of the centering functions. This is very useful because it gets you out of tinkering with the centering functions, and having to do that manually is no fun. This is the way it looks. We're going to now apply a different finish to the straps on the hood. So you click on the hood, you right click, select change surface finish. And then for the straps, we can use, I think we're using some sort of a bronze. Okay, and of course, this is each designer can decide what you think is best, but for now, that doesn't look too bad. Let me now tackle one of the tall cabinets. So in this design, there is a refrigerator on the right side here on wall number 1. On wall number 3, there is an oven housing tall cabinet, and there is a pantry. We'll do that and illustrate how the process works. So what we're going to do is go to the catalog, select tall cabinets. It's going to be 102. Remember, the kitchen is 108. We want the 6 inches between the top of the cabinet and the ceiling to be used with moldings, to be covered with moldings. So the cabinets are 102. We're going to select an oven housing cabinet, and in particular one that has an oven and a micro. So what you want to do when creating, we're going to do it this way, it doesn't matter. So this cabinet is supposed to be 33, right? So what happens when you create an oven housing is that you need to know what the oven dimension is and what the microwave dimension is. If you are in a situation where the customer, your client, hasn't really told you, since it is so easy to change this, you can either put something else for the time being or leave the space blank. If you leave the space blank, it may not look as good when you do renders and things like that. So in this case, the oven is by cafe, and the height of the oven, which is the dimension that it really matters, is 28.6. In the case of the microwave is 17.8. Of course, I have already pre-selected these appliances. Keep in mind that there are many other contenders that you would be able to select depending on what you and your customer want to use. Once you make those selections, you make a note of the dimensions for the oven and the microwave. All you need to do is go back to the ruler where the cabinet is, then apply the dimensions that we just saw, 28.6 for the oven and 17.875 for the microwave. In addition to that, in this particular cabinet, I want the depth to be 26 because I want the countertop on the base cabinet next to it to sort of die against the oven housing. So I click on the check mark, click on the manual insertion, and then my cabinet shows up waiting to be told where it goes, and it goes here. So the way it looks, if I go and show you an elevation of this cabinet, it looks like this. Okay, I'm going to change the color because I'm mixing new files with older files. So this one doesn't have the memory to know that we already selected a color, but that's easy enough. So we click on the walnut, click on the green check mark, and then if we want to apply a different finish to the doors, we can do that. So that's the way the cabinet looks like with the microwave and with the oven. Now, the space left is 36 inches. You know that in several ways. One way that we know that is because the software, when you have a catalog open, will tell you. So it says you have 36.00 something, right? So that's the space we need for placing the next cabinet, which is going to be a pantry. So the pantry cabinet is here. We wanted to make it 33. So we'll go to the ruler and make it 33 instead of 36. Now, you can change the depth to 24, but if you don't want to do that, you can also basically move the cabinet 2 inches to the front. In that case, then when you place that cabinet, it's going to be aligned with the oven housing, even though on the back there is a little of space, but I guess it's worth sometimes to do it this way if you don't need the extra space. Now, when we look at the elevation of this wall, which is wall number 3, it's looking better and better, but it's not really perfect yet. So for once, we need to cover the space between the cabinet and the wall. So you do that also by extending the style. I mean, you could also put a filler or something, of course, but in this case, I think if we do an extension of the right style by 3 inches, then this will be accomplished that way, and then there's no space empty there. Now, the other thing that you may want to do when you do a cabinet like that in custom kitchens, sometimes you want to eliminate the double style. Okay, and also sometimes you want the doors of the cabinets that are together to line up, right? So in that case, let's see, what we can do is click on the cabinet to modify the double style. There is a modification that is precisely created for that. So you can click on the frame, and then what you do is you select change the left style width. Now you want to enter a number that is very close to 0 without being 0, because it doesn't take a 0 as a number. So that will eliminate the double style. Now for the aligning of the doors, what you can do is click on the pantry cabinet, click on the ruler, and then where it says door wall height, this one is supposed to be 36, which is the size of the doors on the oven cabinet. And if you do that, everything looks fairly nice. Now, we've completed the tall cabinets. As I mentioned before, there is basically a sub-zero panel not on the front, but lateral panels, and then a cabinet above. The way that looks, just to show you how the design progresses, is like this. So when you have that refrigerator, then basically the cabinetry in this kitchen has been completed, except that we need the island, right? So we're going to now tackle the island. One of the things about the island is that, different from other programs, in Autokitchen, there is no need to have a wall, pony wall or fictitious wall, to visualize the island. So basically, you can place the cabinets, the island cabinets, anywhere, and you can look at them at any moment by just clipping the view, which takes 5 seconds. So we'll do the island by selecting one of the cabinets, either the left or the right side, and then use the arrows to place the subsequent cabinet. So we'll go to cabinetry. Let's go to the first cabinet. Is a one door, 21 left hinging. We're going to place this cabinet based on coordinates. So the coordinates, you go to other insertions, click on the button with the number 1 and 2, and then follow the prompt. So when it says the wall facing the cabinet, this will be wall number 2, because the island is facing the range. The distance is 74,375 in this case. And then the second coordinate is the wall on the left. Click on it, and then this time this 79.375. You click on the check mark, and that places the first cabinet right there. Now, in terms of next cabinets, it's very simple. There is a pull-out cabinet 15 inches. We're going to click on blue to place that cabinet. The next cabinet is a sink. So the sink is going to be pretty large, because we are going to put in a galley sink. So we make the sink maybe 46, okay, 46. And then we select on the top that says sink at the top, we're going to select a galley sink. We're going to use number 4, single bowl bamboo. Click on the, well, before I click on the blue arrow, let me select the faucet, because we can do both of those things at the same time. For the faucet, let me use color grace. This is particular model. And then click on the blue arrow. I'm going to say yes, because I know I have enough space for the sink and the cabinet. Now we have a dishwasher. The dishwasher is going to be a professional dishwasher by Viking that we mentioned earlier today. And this one, for some reason, needs a small adjustment on the height. It comes as 34 and 1/8, so we'll make it 34.5, so that is properly aligned with the rest of the cabinets on the island. The last cabinet is really a drawer base 18. So we do that, And that completes the, not the island completely, but most of it. So we need to do panels on the side, and then we need to do a panel on the back. For the panels on the side, I would recommend to use wainscot panels. So they are here. You want to use a door style that matches the door that we have on the rest of the cabinetry. Once you do that, you can place the 36 is a good, I think it's a good number for this particular island. So I'm going to snap that. Let me activate my all snap. Okay, I'll put it there and then I'll move it. And then for the next one, I'm going to go to the other side, and then I guess I'll just snap it in one of the corners and then move it. It's a little bit easier to do it in two movements only because depending on the position of the snap, it might be readily available to you or not. So in this case, we go here, so that's pretty good. And then on the second panel, we are going to go from here to the tip of the frame. So if we calculate the back, so this two should be at the same level, 36 inches. I'm going to show you what happens with the countertop. So the countertop on the island is a little mess right now because we have 5 different countertop slabs, and we need to join that. So we're going to join the slabs on the island. Once you do that, the seams disappear. Then we need to extend the countertop in left and right direction, and then also on the back. Before we do that, let me put the panel. We need a panel here. It's going to be a tambour panel. The tambour has been a recent addition to the moldings in Autokitchen. They are at the end. There are different profiles. You can see them. Some of them are concave, some of them are convex. So the one we're going to use is the 50, but the dimension needs to be edited to be 34.5. So once you do that, you can place the tambour on the back of the island like that. And then what we do is if you decide to extend the counter, say another 12 inches from here, we can use a parallel command here, enter the 12, so that when we extend the counter, you can say, okay, go to that line here. So then that makes, we don't need the lines anymore. I'm going to delete them. So if you look at the countertop now, it looks like this is almost done. The only thing that is left to do is extend the overhang on the lateral side at typically 1.5. So you do it a couple of times, and then you have your island pretty much completed. What is left to do is wrap around baseboard. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to skip that and show you how it looks when you show that piece. So that will be the cabinets with the island and the moldings. Yeah, so the moldings, I changed. So the countertop is a neolith countertop in the island. What we did is we split that into 2 different materials, and then we added that wraparound baseboard. So that's pretty much the design. We need now to accessorize this thing, and the accessories are really, I mean, it sounds superfluous sometimes. Maybe it's not necessary. In reality, they really make a huge difference, and they really personalize the design. In terms of how to go about it, you can select accessories from 2 different places. You can select accessories from the Autokitchen catalogs. For instance, things like the pendant lights, the recessed lighting, and things like that has been done using that. You can also include items from the 3D warehouse. I want to show you how that works. So if you go to the project, insert DWG SKP files, let me show you where my blocks, I have my blocks already pre-saved. They came straight from the 3D warehouse, which is a free repository of 3D objects you might be familiar with. If I place my books here, just came from the 3D warehouse, they are placed on the floor. So what you need to do is you need to click on it, right click, and then enter the proper elevation. In this case, it's 36. After that, you want to move that into place. So these books are supposed to be on the counter near the corner. So I'm going to just put them there so that when you do a perspective render later on, they look the part. This is the way it looks right now. And if you want to see how they look in fast shade, those are the books that came from the White House. Okay, so this takes a few moments, but not not really very time consuming. You can, we use some flower pots. We use a big plant, I think, in the corner, things like that to make the design more personalized. Okay, let me go back to the presentation. I've gone through a lot of these steps already. So we're going to go right into, after accessories, we're going to do the color render. So the good news about the color render is that in Autokitchen, sorry, you don't need to export the file. You don't need to spend hours on end. Basically, this design can be rendered by selecting a perspective view. Typically from the back, you can go here or here, point and click. Because we have such a space behind us that is all open, you don't really need any lights. You just need the sun, and then whatever, if you have any fixtures with some a little bit of intensity, that will be good just to show that there are lights. So you go into the rendering by clicking on photo. You want to make sure that if you have a good car, select the hardware acceleration, select the car here, so that you can show the render quality. And also it takes really very little time if you have the proper. Okay, so once you point and click, the render is going to look, it's going to take probably anywhere from 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 minutes, depending on how much of a graphics card you have and how much of a processor, if you render using the processor. Most of the time, if you have an RTX NVIDIA card, it's going to take below 3 minutes for sure. And this is really the end result. This is one of the perspectives. This is another perspective. This is a filter render. It takes only a few seconds to do that. You basically run the watercolor filter on top of the render, and then you can dilute that. You have the ability to decide how much dilution you want. And that takes care of the render. Now, in terms of sharing the design, this is basically how do we communicate what we've done, right? The trends continue to evolve, right? So in the past, we used to see kitchens being presented in 2D, black and white. Now we add 3D, we add color. We use static images like a render, but we also use dynamic media like panoramic views and virtual reality. So that's all good. And then in terms of the settings, the presentations used to be always face to face. And nowadays they are face to face sometimes, but sometimes they're also remote, which speaks to the need to have a repository, a cloud of documents that you can easily share with your customers, right? In terms of the traditional documents that we share, plans and renders, panoramic views, walkthrough videos, and virtual reality, those are the main categories. I'm not going to dwell too much on the video walkthrough only because it's so time consuming that it's probably not worth it. But the panoramic views are easy enough, and the virtual reality is fun and very fast. The plans themselves, you've seen them probably already. This is the cover page. This is the floor plan, elevation views. This is the countertop plan, good for purposes of pricing. The electrical plan with the automated legends and such, very useful. And then, of course, the renders of this kitchen. That makes for a nice presentation. If you want to combine that with dynamic media, I can show you how this looks when we go to, let me see if I can see the panoramic view. Okay, so here's the panoramic view. The panoramic view is fun in the sense that you can, come closer, farther away. It's really a circular view, so you cannot move inside the room and you cannot change the finishes, but it's sometimes good. It provides additional information, particularly for customers who may be having a hard time understanding what you are proposing, the virtual reality is even more fun. This is all sitting on the cloud. So is a panoramic view, by the way, and you render them via a link. What I like about the virtual reality is that you can increase the luminosity, you can increase the quality, and then you can walk in the room. So for instance, you see this green cone. Wherever I click, it takes me there. Then I can rotate my view. And then once I find a view that I like, I can also change certain materials. Like for instance, imagine I want to change the color of the blue cabinet. So I click on that, and then I have a pre-selection of other finishes that I may want to wonder if they are a better choice. This is something that sometimes, apart from being playful, it could be helpful to customers who are trying to decide between one color or the other. The same thing happens with countertops. Right now, the default is this neolith, but if you want to change to something different, you have a few pre-selected materials and you can see how the end result looks like. Okay, let's see. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. If I can find it, I think it's here. The presentation essentially is now completed. I believe the next segment is about Q&A. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you attending this session, and I'll pass it along to Alicia.
Amazing. Thank you again, Miguel, for the presentation. So we are going to dive right in. We have a lot of questions. We're going to get through as many as we can. Just to preface, if we don't get to your question, Miguel will be reaching out via email to make sure that everyone is answered. So I'll begin first, Miguel, with, are furniture pieces per vendor preloaded? If so, how often are these options updated in the program?
We do a software update, like a software version, like a new release every year. Typically at the beginning of the year, we just literally launch AutoKitchen 25. Now the numbers coincide with the year. So in 2025 is version 25, and the next year will version 26. Independent of that, we used to do updates to catalog, just the catalog twice a year or maybe one more time in the summer. Now, about 2 years ago, we changed, and then we do them quarterly. So every 3 months, we basically have an update. Typical things that are included are door styles, like new door styles, new molding profiles, new furnishings, some bathroom fixtures, some knobs, some colors, and the like.
Amazing, thank you. With Autokitchen application, would you recommend for kitchen and bath designers to purchase? Is there a free trial available? Are there subscription costs? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned at the beginning, in software in general, but also in our industry, of course, for the last 10 years, the model that is now prevalent is the software as a service, as they call it, right? It's basically a subscription like the magazines used to be, or maybe they still are. So you pay a flat amount either yearly or quarterly or even monthly. And then as long as you pay that fee, you have access to the software. We offer that. Our yearly cost, I think, is competitive enough. We charge $1,995 per year if the subscription is your model. If you prefer to have a different approach, because what happens with a subscription is that it becomes pricey really quickly, particularly for people who have more than one license. Typically, the competition takes the flat rate, $2,000, $2,200, whatever it might be, times however many licenses each year. That's pricey, I think. So if that's your situation, you can buy the license. In our case, the license when you purchase it is $3,000, just about $2,995. But then the yearly subscription after that is really a fraction of that. It's typically $560, $570 per year. So if you do the numbers for say 3, 4, 5 years, there are huge savings from purchasing.
Amazing, that's super helpful. Before we continue, we have a lot of people asking if this will be available for rewatch, just to be able to go through and see that demo. Yes, it will be on at www.nkba.org/webinars tomorrow after 5 p.m. Eastern. So you guys can rewatch everything, slow it down, and listen to this Q&A. So That'll be really helpful for everybody. Moving forward with the next question, someone asked, can you make organic drawing files or models if you find the software doesn't have the models that you need?
Yeah, there are enough tools. I mean, of course, it depends what it is, right? In the context of kitchens, if you need some sort of furnishing, of course, if it is a cabinet, chances are it's going to be already in the catalog under one description or another. If it is something odd, like a shape, maybe like I don't know, an octagon shape that you need in the room for whatever reason, yeah, there are tools to draw and extrude, basically you draw your shape, you convert that into a cabinet or a shelf or a countertop, whatever the case might be, and that object lives in your design, and it takes only a few moments to do it, so it's not time consuming at all.
Amazing. And you touched on this in the demo, but do you have the option to pull cabinets from the wall to increase depth without increasing the physical depth of the cabinet?
Yeah, we did that actually in one of the pantries. I think the pantry next to the oven. I did it on purpose because sometimes we get the question, can I move it away from the wall 2 inches or 3 inches or whatever? Yeah, of course you can. There is a button that allows you to basically enter how many inches off the wall, and then when you place a cabinet, it will be off the wall.
Amazing. And you might have touched on this as well, but is there an option of applying the hardware at the end as opposed to adding at the start of the design?
Of course, if you don't want to see, same thing with the countertops, by the way. If you don't want to see them, either countertops or hardware, you can negate them. You can select literally none, and then no cabinet will have any hardware. You could also turn the layer. That may be even better. You turn the layer off so that when you are looking at the design, the layer hardware is not visible to you. Then once you are ready to play with your choices and whatnot, you can activate that layer, and then you can change the knobs to be pulls or the pulls to be whatever. Yeah, that's another way to do it.
Amazing. It seems like there's a lot of options. I know we have a few questions about training modules, technical help support, just maybe getting familiar with the software. Is there anywhere that people can find videos on this or anyone that they can reach out to for help?
Yeah, we've done in the last couple of years with version 23, 24, 25, we are embedding the training videos into the same application. So when you launch Autokitchen, if you go to help, you are going to find 3 buttons there. And the first two, or the first one and the third one rather, they are button, the first one is all PDF training materials. And then there is also the same training or tutorial project done in video where there is a person who is actually designing the kitchen and telling you what she's doing. We also have ad hoc videos that we create for support, but if anybody wants to see a video or two of a specific topic, they can send us an email and we can share a video. No problem, whether it's a prospective customers or somebody that is just curious about something. Yeah.
Amazing. And everyone who attended today will get your information so they can reach out and ask those questions.
Excellent.
And I'll say this is our last question for today, just because we have so many. Someone asked, can you use this program for bathroom design or other rooms in the home? If so, are there any room models preloaded?
We really started with kitchens and bathrooms. In fact, the name Autokitchen came precisely because of that. We were based on AutoCAD, and really the focus is kitchens. Over the years, we understand, sometimes kitchen designers are in the position where they need to design other rooms, like a home library, a mat room, a laundry room, and of course, any other room where there is cabinetry, you're going to be fine designing that with our kitchen. As to the pre-design or preloaded, it's really not preloaded. What you need to do is basically draw the bigger space, the kitchen and say the adjacent laundry room or whatever the room might be, family room, and then furnish both of them, and that's it. It's not really much more complicated than that.
Amazing. Well, Miguel, this has been great. Thank you again for not only sharing your expertise, but also demoing this software for our audience. Before we close out here, did you have any last remarks for us?
Yeah, this year we're going to once again be attending KBIS at the end of this month in Las Vegas. If any of you are planning to attend, we'd love to meet you and show you the software. It's Las Vegas is fun place for many reasons, of course, and we always have a good show and meet many customers and prospective customers. Whoever you are, if you happen to be there, please stop by. We are in the North Hall, booth 2608. Love to see you.
Amazing. Thank you again, Miguel, and thank you to everyone for joining us. Until next time, have an amazing day.
Excellent. Thank you.